What's up, you lazy entitled basement dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? Our guest today is a double agent. We've got Miranda Kazos, formerly a Republican political operative who has since come to the dark side or the bright side, the woke side, our side. Um, super woke. And so thank you so much for being here. Can you just tell us who you are, a little bit of your backstory and what you got going on in life?
So I think that part of the reason I got into politics so young is like 9/11 happened and I was never like in sports or anything like that. And I was like, oh, this is going to be my thing. Like the boys are always talking about football, all the adults are talking about politics. And it was just like a huge thing. I was selling like American flag pins and all of that. So I was like already politically aware and interested. And then I think that because I lived in Iowa, something that a lot of people I don't think understand with the way caucuses work, is that there are like always presidential candidates here. Like opportunities that I guess when I was little that I thought would be really hard to get, like interning for a congressman or going to political campaigns, meeting people from Fox News, whatever that was just really, really easy. And so at 16 or 17, I started interning for Congressman Steve King in Iowa. He's awful. And then it's like, I think especially if you're like a younger woman, like you just get taken into the next thing because you'll be at a Steve King event and they'll be like, oh, okay, well, now you're caucusing for Mitt Romney. And they just kind of like grab you up and really focus you. I think because they know that you shouldn't probably um, like be a Republican. And then from Steve King's office, I went to Senator Dan Lederman, state senator. And again, it was another thing where we met like at an event and he said he was hiring. Um, and then I did Newt Gingrich's like national campaign in Iowa. That'd kind of be like the last time uh, that I did anything with a candidate on that level that was a Republican. But then I did get sucked in from there at some point to obviously the Koch brothers, Americans for Prosperity, in South Dakota, but we did a lot of work in Iowa. And like we always had Donald Trump, like I can't think of that many presidential candidates I didn't meet or like weren't in my hometown. And I think that that's why Iowa is unique. Like, and you get a lot of people that get sucked into politics and you might think like, oh, they're just like really talented or really smart or something like that. No, they're just Iowan and like the machine sucks you up. Like I can't really explain it. So
Well, I was like a little confused because you seem to be lacking some of the qualifications you needed, like, the bleach blonde hair and the cross necklace and the below room temperature IQ to be a woman in
right.
Republican politics. So I was curious on how you got hired in the first place.
And it really is. And I do think that that's part of why, like, I would get hired is because, like, not to be mean, but the biggest difference, like, cause so I started dating somebody at the same time I was working at Americans for Prosperity that was doing work for Hillary Clinton. So that's kind of when I started to spend time in liberal spaces. And when I tell you that, like, in conservative spaces, like, they really do, like look the same, basically. And it was that typical woman with the cross necklace. Oh, and in addition to like college kids and stuff that they bring in, uh, they have like an unlimited resource with like the big homeschool families. And so that's what it was. It was women with cross necklaces, their husbands, all of their kids with like the same clothes and haircuts, and then like kind of the business top tier type people that were in suits. Whereas in liberal spaces, you kind of get a little bit of everything.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I expected, but you always expect to hear when it's coming from, on the inside that it's not as much of the stereotype as like we're all kind of like led to believe in what we see in the public spaces, but it is really that much of like the
Worse, I would say. Um, because again, think about it. Like I was the one, like I did the MTV Rock the Vote and stuff. Like they pick people that are different on purpose to kind of be the face, right? If I wasn't an outlier, I realized I wouldn't have had those opportunities. Like obviously I was supposed to be getting younger women to want to be conservative. And I talked about this before, and I realized that, like, I can't tell you how many things that the right does that I had no freaking clue that the left didn't do. And I don't know if that's because I was justifying the work I was doing. Like I thought, okay, well, we're just running a counter operation. But like okay, so like when Newt Gingrich came to Sioux City, Sarah Palin and all of these different people, Ted Cruz, Like when you see the crowd behind them, they pick who goes there. Like they're going to pick somebody that's black, that's Native American, that's woman. Like all of that is staged, as is the questions that they're asked. But like even when you see posters, like I remember it was Kids for Newt or and College Kids for Newt Gingrich, whatever. People within the campaign make those a lot of the time. Any of the events I went to, like people are not bringing those things there. They'll have like a, women for Trump, and then they'll see women and be like, "Do you want this poster that looks really authentic that our interns made?" But then, like when I went to Bernie Sanders, like number one, I realized that on the left they don't always have people behind them, and that you can actually ask any question and it's randomized. And like none of it is as staged as with the right. So it's so interesting because they'll always say that the left is playing identity politics. That's just like a right wing plant because that's like what they're doing the whole time.
Well, I mean, we know that every accusation is a confession with them, and
Every
I
single
mean,
one.
everything, they have more
Hmm.
projection than a movie theater. But I think it's funny the way that you were describing that, how they pick who's going to be in the audience and everything, and it almost sounds like DEI.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it
I
is.
mean, you think that they would just be picking the people to stand behind them who are best qualified for the job,
The
and not
best
just because of
standards, right?
they're black or
Only
Indian or
sneakers.
woman or gay. That's interesting to me because
Hmm.
the impression I've gotten from them was they really hate that.
Right. No, everything is fake with them.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that they would just choose a bunch of people who like stand on the road with signs, and those people stand behind them if they're the best at standing, for a
Yeah,
Professional.
couple
with
hours.
signs. And they
Right.
bring their own signs. You don't even need
Mhm.
to waste
Exactly.
campaign resources. Like
Right.
Right.
just
They do
Seems like a
recycle
I
win-win.
them
mean,
too, which I always found was interesting that people didn't pick up on that. Like now that I've said it, I wonder if you'll notice. Like if you see a big like conservative rally and like look at a handmade sign, you'll see it again if you watch another rally. Like, you know, I guess that's like the
Hmm.
only thing they conserve money on.
that is hilarious. I mean, I try to avoid watching Trump rallies as much as possible, so I probably wouldn't see the repeats. And then the
I
people who
don't
do
blame
watch multiple Trump rallies aren't working with, a full Happy Meal most of the time, so
them. No,
they're probably not paying attention to those minor details.
no.
Uh no, I think it's super interesting because again, this is all stuff that like we feel like this stuff is true watching this all from the outside, and it's like, man, a lot of this stuff feels very staged, very unorganic. And then they're accusing us of doing that stuff all the time. Like I've been a part of, I've gone to protests. I haven't really gone to any political rallies. I sort of think political rallies are just weird in general. But like I've been around these spaces and I'm like, I know these people who are going to these things and I know that they're not getting paid to do this. I know that they're at home with glitter and glue and making their own signs and all that kind of shit. And it's like, so they're accusing all of this and it's like, I feel like that must be what they're doing, which is why they keep coming up with these ideas. And so to like hear it again is just, it's kind of wild.
Well, it's like the whole busing and protesters thing. Why do you think they say that? Like they'll say that with their full chest, and then you'll see a news article about that Trump rally in Vegas. Remember that when they bust all those people out to the middle of the desert to a Trump
Yup.
rally, and then they couldn't bring them all back, and it turns out conservatives hate being around each other just as much as everybody else, so they were fighting. I'm like, the news story here isn't just that Trump buses people to his rallies or protests or whatever and left him there. It's like that should be the story that, that's a service
Yeah.
that he's offering. Oh, Republicans also never pay for like anything either. Like they stiff these small businesses. And I've said that before. Like I posted that on Facebook a while ago. I said, okay, like as Trump's coming to town, I don't care if like I'm sure it's both sides. You always have to say that. I was like, but I can't tell you
Hmm.
like how many restaurants and stuff that like Newt would go to. I think the big thing was he like rented some podiums from a college here and like just never like paid for it. And people were like, oh, the businesses that do that for Trump, though, they're doing it like out of the goodness of their heart. Like they have no problem doing it for free. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, and if you're from the Midwest, like, and you're looking at these small towns and cafes they go to, they absolutely
Hmm.
cannot serve, 50 to 100 people and not get paid for it.
Oh
Like,
yeah, no, I mean that's enough to bankrupt some businesses in like little towns like where
Right.
obviously we grew up in. That's
Mhm.
I don't know. It's crazy to me too because there's no lack of money within like the Republican Party. I mean, it is flush with money. These campaigns are flush with money, especially these high profile campaigns, and it just seems like such a weird thing. And such a thing that like it's crazy that they continue to get away with it, and you haven't had more of a story, more of a highlight put on this that these businesses have gotten screwed over and been really harmed by these campaigns that come through and pretend to be the party of the working man and the blue collar man, and now they're just fucking all these working blue collar people over. And that it's obviously been happening for years. If we're talking Newt Gingrich, like this isn't a new thing. Like we expected from Trump, like that. Nobody's shocked or surprised there, but Newt
No.
Gingrich and all of that they're not paying these bills when they clearly have the money to do it, and it's campaign expenses, so they can use their campaign funding to do this stuff a lot of the time.
Right. And it's just like with Randy Fine. If you start to run out of money, they'll come in and save you. But like, so I was on Newt's campaign for like 6 months. The entire reason I didn't go on to New Hampshire and a lot of other people didn't is because we also, like, we never got paid. It was always like, oh, well, we need this or we need that. And I think that a lot of times what they'll do is they'll like, come to Iowa, and in hopes that they'll perform better in the caucus and get that big influx of money. And they're kind of,
Mm-hmm.
borrowing from Peter to pay Paul or whatever people say. Like it's not
Yeah.
there. And if any of us operated a business that way, it would be considered a Ponzi scheme. But they can
Oh
do it.
yeah.
And the left has such like, and I go off constantly about how I've never seen a good leftist or democratic strategist. And they're
Mm-hmm.
pissing this down their leg because we know that in the Midwest is where this starts, where it rolls out. But our coastal Democrats have no clue. And they have no clue. Like, I'm going to give you some examples of things that ridiculous shit we spent money on. If Democrats understood how horrible Republicans are with money, because yes, the coffers are always full, but if so, but they piss it down. Like I told you guys about like the giant 2-ton paper mache pig that they made and took to the state fair, right? Like somebody from Americans for Prosperity was like, "Oh, well, what if we have a giant pig at our booth?" And they made this ridiculous. And when I say paper mache, I want you to imagine that like a 5-year-old was told to make a balloon paper mache out of a pig, except you needed a huge trailer, like a horse trailer, to take this pig to the fair. And in these organizations like Americans for Prosperity, I cannot tell you, just a random field director that gets the job, like I would have gotten the job. They have a credit card they could spend like crazy, and the amount of fraud is insane. So this guy, and I don't know if he had like an Adderall problem or some sort, like I know he had a drinking problem, and he definitely had like crackhead vibes. Like he'd have an idea like this giant pig. And so he gets this pig and he doesn't even have a truck. So then he needed to borrow somebody's truck. And then we had to take this big diesel pickup truck from Sioux City to Des Moines, Iowa. So we're talking 4.5 hours, like probably getting 12 miles to the gallon. This is like his first time pulling a trailer, I'm pretty sure. And they set the pig up at this fair. And I have no idea how much like a 2-ton giant pig costs, but I'm imagining like a lot. And so we bring it to the fair, and then he gets this idea. I was like, I don't get, like, why would Americans for Prosperity have this? And he goes, oh, wait. And he texts everyone, like, we have a gift for you. Like, you're going to love our slogan for the fair. And the slogan was something like, pork, good for Iowa, bad for politics or something. And the thing is with farmers, it did not fucking land well. Like, so many people came up to us and are like, how dare you? Like, they thought we were PETA. I don't know what they thought, but they thought that we were, like, anti hog farming. And so then the problem became like, where are we going to store this pig? So they had to put it at the Americans for Prosperity. At one point, they called and asked if they could leave it in my driveway for a couple days. And at the time, I was living with my parents. I was like, we live in an HOA. Like, I couldn't have like a pig statue, like a regular size one in my yard. Um, and then like, okay, so like with this credit card, you're allowed to spend as much as you want on networking. And I think you can imagine the way Republicans like change the definition of anything, like so anything could be networking. So there were these two guys, like we'll call them Jim and Doc, because that's like their real life names. And they were like, I just need you to understand that when I say this, like they look exactly like how you would imagine. Like there's like a Timu Einstein guy that always has holes in his shirt, right? And then kind of a grumpy old, like racist man. And we just got a Hard Rock in Sioux City. So that's like a big deal if you live in Iowa and you get like a Hard Rock. And so it had nothing to do with my work, but these guys were just like diehard, like Republicans. And the field director really wanted to eat at the Hard Rock every day. So he would like obviously have to have a few meals on there to justify it as networking. Every single weekday that I worked, so like 4 work days a week, like I was mandated to go to lunch at the Hard Rock and sit with the field director and these two grumpy old men and like their station. And I'm telling you, nobody new ever came. Nobody, like literally nobody new ever came. It was just these two men that for whatever reason we fed every single day, like for months on end. I tried to bring it up. And it all culminates at the end where I found out that the guy, the field director, was living in the Americans for Prosperity office. And so that was kind of the final straw. And I went through these credit card receipts and there were like these huge meals. And he was saying that I was there, that like we were going to dinner and like doing all these things, places I've literally never been, like all over the state. It was just like a 24-year-old guy with a credit card spending however he wanted. And if you think of it like how inefficient that is, the left isn't as disadvantaged if they think as they think if they choose to spend wisely and to be frugal and to make better marketing choices and to kind of strike at the foundation instead of waiting until, you know, you're running Harris against Trump and paying Beyonce in hopes that a message gets out. So as much money as they have, I cannot stress like how stupid that they are. So that's what we got going for us, I guess.
I mean, yeah. So it's sad. I was cry laughing at that story. Have you made a TikTok video about this
Oh
story
yeah, I
yet?
posted. There's a picture because and so the first thing, that's right. They wanted to put it at my house because they to be clear, they made it in Des Moines and drove it to Sioux City. Like, oh, you're gonna shit when you see how big it is. They drove it to Sioux City for one event, and that event was going to be a ribbon cutting, which I had to be at. And so this was my first time seeing the pig, and I'm just standing there at the ribbon cutting, like I didn't know what to do with my face. I was like, "What's this?" Like and it's like, and the thing is no matter how good this pig looked, it would still be insane. But I can't tell you how ugly this pig is. Like it's bumpy, it's asymmetrical. Um, Like it looked like chewed bubble gum, except probably 12 foot tall. I don't know. Like it was taller than the office. So I mean it's a big pig. Um
I'm scrolling through your TikTok trying to find it. But is it the little tab? Is that a just a pig?
let me see
A giant thing.
I'm gonna
I
find it.
gotta. We can look it up later, but I gotta
Yeah.
find it at some
This
point.
is just. I mean, this is. It's sad because this is such a hilarious story, but then also it highlights the point that this is the shit we're losing to.
Right.
So like then it hurts my soul a little bit because it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, that's
And as much as I
I
can break down their strategy, one thing is for as long as I've been on the left, I never know what the fucking game plan and I don't mean what I need to be doing because I could write a game plan and win this if I had $1 billion, right? Like I understand everything that's wrong and genuinely believe I could fix it. That's me being
yeah.
arrogant. But when I
I mean,
watch Democrats work, I don't know what they're doing or what their strategy is. It's so
they don't
unclear.
fucking know what they're doing. No,
Yeah.
there it is a clusterfuck. We're actually going to talk about that in a little bit. I still want to focus a little bit more on the Republican stuff at the moment. And then we'll get to that because yeah, I think we have a lot to talk about and sort of want to stay focused on kind of keeping it in order. Um, switching gears from the pig, which I could probably talk about all day because that is some of the funniest shit I've ever heard in
Yeah,
my
me
entire life.
too.
Uh, I going back to the behind the scenes stuff, and again, just like all the stereotypes we have, and I got to know what it was like being an attractive woman, not to be like offensive or anything, just but an attractive woman surrounded by just sexually repressed incels all the time. Was it as creepy and as like
It's
offensive as I'm
definitely worse
imagining
than
it
you
would
think.
be?
Again, it's definitely going to be a lot worse than you think. Okay, so that same field director, and this makes it so when this field director for Sioux City was hired, it's probably important to note that he had just gotten back from Israel, right? And so he was very like obsessed with Israel and everything he learned there, and was like trying to implement it into like everything, which is how I accidentally like ended up at a Zionist meeting once too, but that's neither here nor there. And
No, that
he,
might be here in a minute. I want to know about that too.
yeah, so because I think it's important to think of like, because I need people to understand that a lot of this wasn't my identity. I'm curious, right? Like I get like sucked into shit. Like and they never tell you that like, hey, you're going to a they call it something else always. So there's a lot of so the field director is supposed to maintain the office and there's people beneath you, but where you have most of your events is going to be at somebody's house or wherever. And this guy was just spending money like crazy. First time he had access to funds like this in his life, and probably the last time because most people don't. And so these
Because he
things,
made a giant paper mache thing.
I know, like the way, like I wish I would have asked. I sometimes you see something so shocking, I think that you forget follow-up questions because you're just taking it in. And so he would be like a little flirtatious, but when I say inappropriate, he so we would do these phone banks at my house because for one, he just got back from Israel, so I was like the only one that knew people and stuff and could actually recruit. So we would have like once a week I'd either do like spaghetti or tacos and just like invite my friends over and we'd do these phone banks on whatever issue. And he would come over and get like completely smoked and drive, and I'd be like, you can't do that anymore, like whatever. And then like he was showing us pictures, and of course I knew the girl because like this is like my city. He's like, she's so hot, she's in my like all he would do is talk about women. And one of the times he got so drunk, he left, and I was still in school. So keep in mind, I have like a 2-year-old at this time, and I'm going to college. So I'm getting up in the morning, and I have no shirt on, anything like that. He had left the night before. And again, I'm living with my parents. So my parents have a house with an apartment in the basement. Like that's where we would have these meetings. And it's like 6 in the morning. I'm getting ready for class, and I hear like thud, 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 thud. And I hear the door open to the basement. His drunk ass comes stumbling down. I have no clothes on, and it's still like I have pants on, so it's still not clocking for him that like one, the fact that you walked into my dad's house like because he wouldn't have let him in, then came down to the basement. You're my boss. You're looking at me with no shirt on, and it never clocked to him. He's like, hey, I have to find my cell phone, or my girlfriend's gonna get really mad. And I said, well, your girlfriend's going to be really mad anyways, because like, I'm going to fucking tell her like that you're a fucking drunk and you busted into my house at 6 o'clock in the morning. No apology, like nothing. He literally like is asking me to help him look for his computer. And keep in mind, this is the same guy that I ended up finding out was living in the office. And when I said, well, okay, so you're from the Midwest, so you would know what like a strip mall office would entail.
Yeah.
Like, think about like a once a year H&R Block. It has nothing in it besides empty space with a bathroom with nothing but a toilet and a mirror in it, and it's not even like finished. So when we would start having things there, he was like trying to like bring girls there. I think sometimes like to stay. And this level of drunkenness on the clock never ever stopped. Like I know, and again, this is a strip mall.
Wait, is this man now Secretary of Defense?
Oh no. He now heads up a Christian Republican organization. I could send you more on.
Oh, that not surprising at all.
Yeah. So yes. So picture that like you're me and I have to work with Pete Hegseth every day in the middle of the Midwest, and he can spend as much money as he wants. So it was kind of beginning to be the last straw. And then the other thing is that there's no time. Like he would call at 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Didn't matter. Oh, I need this done. Because at the end of the day, it's the actual like, what do you call it? Like field associates that are doing everything, going to the events, planning things. Again, not only was I the only one that knew anybody, but like I was the only one that was like ever sober. So like he was completely like living in this strip mall and spending money just to go out to eat like constantly, and they'd always be drunk. And the other guy that was his friend that he'd bring, right, because it was networking, right, you just bring your friend and pay for stuff. One time he made me go to the office, which was completely unnecessary. Like this was absolutely a work from home job. And well, we need to be in the office more so it looks like there's activity here. And I was like, that sounds like a huge waste of time. I go there, him and this other guy are both completely drunk, and they both have pistols loaded, like passing them around. Like zero regulation. Like nobody oversees what's going on in these organizations. And how he ended up getting fired is because like obviously I called to report that he was just spending credit card money like crazy and lying and saying this. But he made me go to this downtown event at, you can imagine, like an Iowa bar. And my brother was there. Like, so this is my brother's best friend, me, because he said, you have to bring people because it's recruiting. I'll buy everybody food. And of course, they're like 21 at the time. So, like, of course they went. I'm standing against the bar, and he drunk comes up and he puts one hand on my butt, the other on my boob, and squeezes as hard as possible. My brother's right there. And what happened?
He knocked him the fuck out.
My brother's best friend, my brother, I think my brother was looking at that maybe like the same way I was shocked by the giant 2-ton like paper mache pig. But the other guy did punch him. And so from there, I called and was like, hey, I was like, you need to understand. I said, this is like, I'm fine, I'm good. I'm like, but this is somebody that is drinking and driving, that's clearly capable of SA, that like, you need to get rid of him. And I feel like the reason they didn't take my complaints about the credit card serious at first is because like they're doing the same shit, right? Because how are you going to audit the Sioux City office and not the Des Moines office? Right? Like, and then they got this other guy to come in, and we didn't get along. Well, this was, I mean, I was done at the time anyways. Like I knew it was over. But yeah, they are all like that. Like very aggressive to women, very disrespectful to women, and like even their own partners. Like I said, I was there. Like, why are you looking up women on the internet that you went on a date on and like rating them in front of us? Like, incredibly inappropriate.
It's just
and the firearms were too. Yeah.
Hard to imagine why they can't attract more women voters.
Right. And by the way, all of the women that would be like around my age, every single one of us is on the left now that I knew of.
So again, with their whole walk away movement that they were talking about around the last election was just more projection because Republican people involved with the actual party were the ones walking away.
Right. Like, and that's the thing that did surprise me somewhat with the voting, but they also manipulate the women vote quite significantly, like within those homeschool communities. Like it's just known. Because honestly, I don't think that most women, like women that had a choice in this election, I still don't feel would have gone over 50% for Trump.
Yeah, it was crazy to me. I mean, those numbers just did not make sense to me, but nothing in this world seems to make sense to me anymore, so I've kind of chalked it up to things that I'll just never understand. So I guess when you were doing this, all the work, what was kind of the main aspects of your job? What were the tactics? Like what, because obviously you said you guys were organized and had some sort of plan, even if that plan was giant paper mache pigs.
Right.
What was the big picture? What was the organization like?
So, and I do refer to like Heritage Foundation, Turning Points USA, and this org, because like the people have to know this. They are a conglomerate. Like, so we would be switching people, like even at the fair, like we would give some of our personnel to Turning Points USA or Turning Points USA from the Heritage Foundation and whatever. So they work together so much more. And well, we've all seen Project 2025, so it's probably not a surprise to anybody now. But so what they do and why the left is not winning is because they fail this. What they do is they go to small, homogenous, legislators that are highly unprofessional. So previously that probably would have been a little bit of Minnesota, but what they do is they target Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma would probably be a good one, right? Because in these areas, they know that number one, anybody can be a legislature here because like half of them don't get opposition, right? So they look at gaps.
Yeah.
What they do is they find people to fill it. They build the legislature of their dreams. They're homogenous. They're always going to vote for the right. They don't take much to pay off, and they are so fucking dumb. They know that these legislatures are dumb. So what they do is once they find that perfect little place in Missouri and Iowa, they, like, people think that lawmakers write the law. No, no, no. It is Turning Points USA, Heritage Foundation,
Lobbyists.
APEC, whatever. They write these bills, and they go to the most fucking unwashed ass, grumpy old racist legislator to say, oh yeah, okay, so and so, Dan's going to be sponsoring this bill. And then after the bill gets sponsored, right, then these groups like go door to door. Oh, I have a letter from the Heritage Foundation. I wonder if it's up here to show you what I mean. So what they do after it's proposed is they do everything necessary to get it passed in the easiest of places. Why? Because if it passes somewhere, it can pass anywhere, right? That like in like this is why I hate
normalizing it. It's normalizing the legislation and making it
Right. And then the template's already there, so it's cheaper in the next place. So these Democrats that think, okay, well, I'm in a safe state, you're not, because this is how they do it. And once it happens in a state, they just put it into federal legislation. So how do you get people to support this, right? Well, we're already going to kind of be dealing with a right-wing base. What they do is they plant the idea in voters' heads in one way by making them think it was their idea and targeting the right people. So, for example, if this was about expanding Obamacare or Medicare, whatever it was. But what they would do is they would get their list of Republicans, right? And they send a survey and it says, how do you feel? And they would deliberately use the word Obamacare, right? Instead of the Affordable Health Care Act, and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, and there'd be other questions in there that you would think are peripheral, but they're not. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how religious are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, do you consider yourself to be very liberal or conservative, right? And they're learning about you through these surveys. And then at the end, it would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you support Obamacare, right? They'd get this data and they'd know that this subgroup, right, absolutely hates Obamacare. They're very religious. So they're getting all this data for the next one. So then they'll send something that looks informative. Did you know that Obamacare is costing Iowa $70 zillion a year and, going to illegal immigrants or whatever they would fucking come up with? And so they're deliberately choosing this group to slowly groom them into the belief system that they want. Then what they'll do is another survey and say, in a poll by Americans for Prosperity, we discovered that 79% of Americans, because when you convince the rest of because if you don't really care, you're apathetic about something, right? Like if they said, if somebody said 80% of Iowans want to wear purple on every Monday, I might think, okay, well, like if that's what like everybody wants, that doesn't really impact me, I'm going to become apathetic about it. But the entire research is a lie because they had selected that group. And that's what the Heritage Foundation did to help get Kristi Noem into the Department of Homeland Security with similar surveys about illegal immigrants. And none of it's true. And they think that they're coming up with the idea themselves, but they're not. It's all written and planned.
I mean, and I guess it's just crazy to see like how incompetent these people are in Congress and how competent they are at this like type of. This is psyop stuff. This is straight up.
Right, because
This
they're
is
all
the same shit
handled.
that the CIA was doing in like Central America and Asia and shit. Like this is the same shit, and it's just insane to me. That, like,
It really is.
they can't even pick their own Speaker of the House and keep him employed for like more than 8 minutes, but
No.
they can have these gigantic behind the scenes conspiracies that are this effective.
Right, but that's the other disadvantage is the right has an apparatus, but the left doesn't. Meaning that like I said, like Randy Fine shouldn't oh my God, I cannot tell you how fucking scary it is that Randy Fine is in Congress. I sometimes have to remember
I know,
that.
that guy's horrifying.
He's horrifying, right? So he would be another one that's in the conglomerate is the Republican Jewish coalition, right? But where did he? People don't understand. It starts small. Like you can like you somebody whose random uncle is now like a state legislature, and then what do? They do everything by all means necessary. If that puppet performed well enough, they will get you, because just like if a bill passes somewhere, it can pass anywhere else. The minute somebody sits on a city council, a school board, or a state legislator, their odds of going up are basically 100%, so long as this apparatus is in place and they know exactly what they're doing. I mean, it was 12 years ago that I went to the Republican Jewish Coalition sponsored meeting with Mike Huckabee because I fucking hate myself, I guess. But I didn't know. But the entire purpose of that visit was for Huckabee to talk about Israel. This is not coincidence that he is now in the position that he's in. Kristi Noem, she started, a state legislator, did nothing but lie, completely, like, zero qualifications, becomes governor, zero qualifications, and now she's the entire fucking world's problem because the apparatus is that strong. If you behave for it well enough and you only stick to their talking points, they know that, number one, if you pass legislation, they can spread it wherever they want. Number two, if you perform well, they know that they can get you in any government position that they want to. And a lot of people think that the presidency's the prize, the cabinet's the fucking prize. The state legislator's the prize. It's always been that way. And if you don't consider how serious getting the fact that they're manipulating in the Midwest these state legislators, who determines how elections are ran, right? Wisconsin 100% would have been one. And I know a lot of people like to say, oh, well, it was stolen, and to which I'll say, okay, we've got to be careful about saying that because we want people to have faith in our elections. But you do need to understand, state by state, they had a plan to make sure the results went a certain way. And had they not touched Wisconsin 100% would have gone Harris. I mean, it was down to less than 400 per county. And the approach they took there was just removing people from the rolls with the same legislation that the Heritage Foundation wrote to get Noem into the Department of Homeland Security, and voter intimidation and things like that. It's different in each state, but there's a reason that the entire middle of the country looks red like that. Like if you look at a map of Wisconsin.
And so like, and this is the thing too, is where when people say the elections were stolen, by the not when Republicans were saying Democrats stole the election, because Democrats are too fucking stupid and unorganized to ever put together anything like this. But it's not that it was stolen in some sort of illegal way. They weren't breaking laws to do this. They wrote laws that allowed them to suppress these votes, and it was stolen in plain sight by purging voter rolls under legal state legislation, by closing polling stations, by doing like. Yes, it was stolen, but it wasn't stolen by Elon Musk sitting there behind a computer, changing ballot numbers. It's just like, no, this, the conspiracy isn't under wraps. You don't need to unearth anything. It's been out there in the open for years. The Congress has been stolen for a century just because of gerrymandering. Like this is what they're doing, and they don't need to do some big illegal hypothetical, conspiracy. No. They just continue to do exactly what you've been saying. They've built this infrastructure that allows them to pass laws, that allows them to make sure that votes go the way that they want them to go. And this is why it's really frustrating that people, get so focused on these Pizzagate style conspiracies. It's like you're missing the forest,
and it's right there.
The answer's right in front of you, and this is what we need to do to fix it. And you're just so busy sitting here, like, looking under chairs and beds for clues, and it's like, it's all right out there. Like,
and it was hard. And because I feel like you and I make similar content in that it's like long form, and we actually like talk about facts and stories. It was so hard to get on TikTok and social media after the election and watch people be like, "You're telling me that this many votes got lost and that this settled," like, and it's like, no, we've all been telling you for how long that they're doing it right in front of us, which means that, and then the left is going to come back, oh, it was messaging. When you send a message to oppressed people, it goes to fucking voicemail. You're not going to win unless you go state by state. And that's why I wrote Project 2029, where I write in each state what would have to happen in what order to get it back. If you don't focus on reversing anti-democratic policies that make it more difficult to vote. And if you don't, prevent the SAVES Act and stuff, I said the messaging isn't going to matter. The messaging won places like Wisconsin and probably Pennsylvania. If it was just about messaging and none of these things ever happened, of course she would have won. And now to think of all of these horrifically anti-democratic things that have gotten passed, everything from felons to youth to voter ID, people are not afraid enough of the legislation that's being proposed when it comes to the census. Because if they change the census in the ways that they want to only count certain people, they have the country for almost, like, I would genuinely, as somebody that does nothing but think of strategy all day, I don't know how to recoup from that. Because just to give you an idea of how terrible that would be, if they were to rewrite the census the way they want them to, she could have won all of the blue wall states and still lost. Like, it's that bad. And so people are going to focus on, like, well, what type of event should we have? Like, who should be the spokesperson? Should we be appealing to white men more? That's level 12 shit. And we're on like level 1. Like, we have to fix these policies because this is the only thing that that's the only thing I did while I was there. Even though I didn't really know.
I think, right. And that's hugely important because I think so few people understand really just the foundational, especially on the left, just no clue what the foundational level of the infrastructure is on the right and the strategy and how long this has been going on. Like, it feels like Democrats come in 8 months before the election and they're like, all right, this is what the Republicans are doing that's been working. We're just going to throw a bunch of money at this and try to replicate it. And then when we lose or we win or whatever, like, cool, we'll worry about it now 6-8 months before the next election. And, like, they've been working on this
for 40 years at least.
40, 50 years. I mean, since Nixon, at least. And, you know, and this is where it's like, you can't do that. You can't try to reinvent or build everything, all of the infrastructure that they have from scratch a few months before the election every time, and then just forget about it. And you can't spend so much time focusing on the high-profile races. Republicans spend billions of dollars, I'm sure, on things like school boards and state legislatures and zoning commissions.
Are huge. Yes.
And that's where it's people don't realize, like, and that's what frustrates me so much about people on the left, because voter roll-off for people on the left is at like 80%. Like, where they'll vote top ticket, they might vote senator, may vote their congressman, and then just leave the rest of the fucking thing blank. And it's like, this is why they're winning, because your president can't do shit. The president has a lot less power than you think. It's all of
It's
the support structure they have underneath it.
Yes.
And so they, even when we win those high profile races, we lose so much power because we consistently underperform down ballot. And that's where, as you're pointing out, they get these people on the school board and they start passing policies at a local level and get people desensitized to those policies. And then they take that up. Those people move up the ranks into state legislation and they pass those statewide. And then those people now have name recognition. They have legislation under their belt that they've gotten passed, and they go up to federal positions like Congress or Senate, and they start introducing that legislation at a federal level. And pretty soon, that's where all of that stuff ends up happening, is like, that's how you get these national laws that are so regressive coming back along. And it's so fucking frustrating. Well, Taylor, I mean,
you can see it. It's even worse if you could see it, because you're just like, what are we doing? But I think the best way to think of Republicans, okay, so if our country is a body, Republicans are a very aggressive metastasizing cancer, right? And what the left tries to do is they say, oh, okay, well, you've got breast cancer that's metastasized to your lungs and it's throughout your whole body. They'll be like, well, why don't we, like, cut your breast off? Well, you're dying anyways. Whereas Republicans start radiation, right, at the earliest phase. They make sure it doesn't go, but that's what they do. They grow and grow and grow until you don't see that they exist until it's too late. And like what you said about dumping money, I still see a lot of people kind of use that phrase wrong. Like, obviously, if you have more money to campaign, that's good, and that increases your chances. People think that a campaign has a lot of money. The money's dumped into it, so therefore the campaign got their message out more, and that's how they won. No, the money that's dumped into it changes all of the rules around them to make it easier to win, right? Like in Florida, part of like why Randy Fine won. It's because they create the system around them to make it easier to win, not because of their messaging. I mean,
Right.
Randy Fine, for God's sakes, tried to cancel the Special Olympics because he got mad at a school board member that he called a whore. And then he posted
Hmm.
pictures of dead children in Gaza with laughing emojis next to it and said that he loves it. And then just last week, he said he wanted to nuke a place. I don't think that that's a message that's resonating. That's a system that's broken. Like, that's where the money went,
Yeah.
right? Like, to completely save face with him. And the other thing that the left does, like you says, they don't care about any of these small elections or down ballot shit. They wait for the big one, and then for 8 months, let's get out the vote. Get out the vote doesn't work. I mean, you still have to do that. That has to be happening in perpetuity, right? But think about it this way: if you've knocked doors, as I have to register people to vote or have done any of that work, how many people can you really register and make sure that you register correctly in a day? 20, 30, 40? 6 people were able to take 900,000 people off the rolls. Just 6 private citizens just went to the two secretaries of state. I think it was Nevada, New Mexico, and were like, we want these people purged. So if money can get millions of people off the rolls, and not only get them off the rolls, but like what we saw in North Carolina, but even after you win, they can contest and say, well, this group technically shouldn't be grandfathered into this law. Then get out the vote a couple days, months, weeks before an election isn't going to do anything. Like, it's the policies that have to change, and it has to be, and it can't just be on the coast, right? We need to like flip the Midwest on its head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, and there is, I will still stand by some of Democratic messaging is bad, and just their campaign strategies are horrible. Like,
it's awful. Yes.
Clinton not visiting Wisconsin one time, and just taking the whole blue wall for granted, and then losing basically every state but Minnesota in that blue wall, and almost losing Minnesota, which is fucking insane. Is just that's just a complete failure. She spent a ton of time in Florida where she was never going to win,
right?
And zero time in all of the states that she lost. I mean, she spent a fair amount of time in Pennsylvania, I guess, and a little bit of time in Michigan, but like, Wisconsin, Minnesota, like, she should have been up here in the Midwest doing that, because the Midwest felt very, when the coastal elite thing, the out of touch coastal elite thing is obviously a trope that Republicans push all the time, but there's truth to it.
Right.
And it's frustrating as fuck. Especially when we live out here. We're the people on the left who live in those areas, and we're like, yeah, we can't really tell these people when they say these things that they're wrong, because they're not. But that, I think, brings us, I think that's a really nice transition to the switch. Your switch specifically, when did that happen? When did you say, all right, fuck this shit, I'm out?
So I think it happened in pieces, right? So one thing that was different about me than other people, like, I never had like a religious reason to be a Republican, right? I was just kind of told things, so freedom, okay, the left, abortion, whatever, stuff I didn't even care about. But it came in pieces, and I definitely think that getting into the information literacy part of college, which I'm the biggest advocate for, information literacy research methods needs to be a high school course in the United States, like it is in every other country. We are graduating people that have when I was in high school, I dead ass turned in a paper on immigration, and I used Glenn Beck's book, and Bill O'Reilly's books, because those are the books in my house, and I was like, I'm not going to the library, obviously. So I just quoted them, and my teacher was like, these are not reliable sources. And being in the world I was in, so this is high school, I was like, oh yeah, so my, indoctrinating liberal teacher isn't going to let me cite Glenn Beck, And then when I found out, okay, what is the sample size? What is this? That made me deconstruct, at lightning speed, because I would read articles, and then if they attached research, I'd read it and be like, oh, okay, so this is just the Cato Institute, or the Heritage Foundation, citing Turning Points USA, which is citing the Koch brothers, which is like a study of 5 people in Omaha conducted by Moms for Liberty. It was very easy to understand that. But also, I also think that I rolled back, it wasn't like a switch, but there were certain rollbacks even when I was young. And it was because you'd catch them lying, right? So I was told, oh, they want abortion until the baby's born. And I was logical enough to be like, that's probably not right. But then there was that Dr. No case, right, in New York. And I was like, well, he just got like several murder charges. So it doesn't really seem like big old crazy New York is that crazy about abortion, because what you said that they were doing legally, somebody just got, like, I don't know, like 80 life sentences for. And then Americans for Prosperity was really a turning point because they made the mistake of having me do those surveys, but going door to door into people's homes and talking to them. And one thing about me is I have to fucking be right. And when I worked for Americans for Prosperity, they tell you, and I hate political nonprofits. They shouldn't exist. They say this is a nonpartisan way, to build wealth for Americans. I was like, I like money and I'm American, so this is going to be great. But then I could tell, I'm looking at the questions they're asking, and I'm like, hey, this isn't a solid study. And I thought that when we were getting this information, we were actually surveying them, right? Like if we surveyed 100 people and 90 of them said, oh yeah, we want the gas tax, I thought we'd be honest with that and that would dictate our policy. I didn't know that our only job was to continue to manipulate to get like certain legislation through. And when you work for Americans for Prosperity, Turning Points Heritage, you are given, probably every week or two, you have to do a call and talking points that you are not allowed to deviate from, ever. That's why Charlie Kirk's the way he is. That's why Christy Nome interrogates the way she does. Like, it looks ridiculous to you for her not to answer, but believe me, that is in her best interest because she has a handler. She's not the actual figurehead. So that didn't really fly with me because I'd go to people's house and and I would say a talking point and somebody would be like, that's not true. And unlike, I don't know, 70 some fucking million Americans, I looked it up. And then I was offended by both being lied to, but then having like my intelligence questioned. So then I had to sit and think, yeah, there were these little things like the abortion thing in high school and things that and climate change being a big one, like obviously they're lying on that. And so then I had to start to think, like, if I could be wrong about this, then just naturally I could be wrong about so many other things, first of all. So I started to research every single opinion I had and like very rapid fire flipped on everything, but also just the human experience of talking to people when I began to find out that we were only there to make sure, for example, that this healthcare plan was going to get passed or be taken away rather. And I was talking to people that would be like, well, my daughter, wouldn't have her diabetes medicine if she didn't have that, or, we wouldn't have access to this van. And, if Planned Parenthood closes, I wouldn't have, like, when I had the real human experience, I wasn't so, like, I didn't understand. Because they would tell me, well, these people could get Medicaid anyway. They're like, this doesn't need to exist. And that's not true because there's a huge Medicaid gap here. Like, these people's lives were really going to be harmed. And the reality, too, was that was showing in the data. So when why are you making me walk around and get data just to manipulate it? And I realized that it wasn't really data we were getting. It was, of course, the fake study, but it was to basically plan and, make sure that this legislation was going to get passed and to manipulate people into thinking it was a good thing, no matter how unpopular it was.
I mean, and props to you for having that like self-actualization and realization and coming around. Taylor, you had something to say?
Yeah, no, I just was gonna say that's probably, if that was a normal thing, then Republicans wouldn't really exist in that space. There wouldn't be all these people working for these nonprofits if they had the just like levels of empathy, like to connect with the people that they're supposed to be talking to on a day-to-day basis.
Right. And they know they had to have that experience, right? Like somebody had to like throw rocks at them and be like, you Koch brother fucking idiot, get out of my house. And they just would see that as an excuse. And I'm like, okay, people are this passionate about it. And then I also had to ask myself, I was like, why do I care? Like, what would be the best thing if that, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, why are we taking shit away from people? Like, that makes absolutely no sense. But again, you also have to keep in mind that I thought that I was just like a researcher. I wasn't a researcher. I was a manipulator. And that pissed me off more too. So,
Sure.
And the fucking horrifying thing is, and I do have a letter from the Heritage Foundation, the one that they sent this cycle, is they're getting better at it. Like, they're getting better at it.
I mean, they're clearly getting better at it. Well, and this is something. So, all right, because I want to tie back to that too. But first of all, are you working now in progressive politics or left liberal Democrat politics at all, or?
So no, right now what I'm doing is, so I decided that I wanted to like write and kind of teach everything I knew, and that's why I got on TikTok. And I'm definitely gun shy about joining and being employed by a specific organization. Like I've done campaign stuff and all that because I never want to be beholden to a certain set of like beliefs and feel like I can't be honest about things I saw within an organization, because how bad would it be right now if I go work for I don't even know, some famous liberal cause pops up and I go work for it and I see some sort of like dishonesty or something bad, or I don't think it's right. And that's why very early on I spoke out about Z-Run's campaigns, no offense. Because
No, yeah, hey, I wish I had trusted my gut a little bit more on that, obviously, and I've taken my licks on that.
no. Well, what was done right was the people she chose. Like there were things that were done right, but because it's a political action committee, because they are like in some cases political nonprofits, I feel like I would be totally toast if I did anything outside of independent. And that's not saying I wouldn't go to an event or do a
Right.
thing, but the reason I feel like I can't is because like, what if I go and I start to call that out? Like, then what am I? Just the
Mhm.
person that goes in workplaces and says it was bad, or like I don't like existing in a space where I have to give up things that I believe are true and accurate to appease like anybody else. And so I feel like I'm
Mhm.
more authentically myself and don't have to worry about that if I just publish my own stuff, even though TikTok's like really screwing me right now. But
Yeah.
also it's too frustrating for me because I have tried, like, I don't know if you've seen, I've tried to write quite literally every single person in the Senate. I've tried to get a hold of Hakeem Jeffries. I've called Harvard. I've
Mhm.
sent this packet to anybody that I can. It's too hard to actually understand how things work and then have to like operate at a level where I don't feel like it's going to do anything. Like I couldn't go knock doors and get people to register to vote when I know exactly who's working in what state to get people off the rolls. I want to solve that problem. Like if I know, for example, that certain restrictions on felons voting is going to actually be huge. Why? Because the entire point of the Republican Party is to create an obstacle, then an obstacle to that obstacle, and an obstacle. So if they say, "Oh, we're going to make it harder for felons to vote," the next thing they're going to do is make more felons. Is abortion going to be a felony? I don't know. Are they going to set up more, phishing type things on the internet?
Mhm.
Yes, like that's like how they do it. So when I'm so focused on like a root cause problem, I can't find a political home actually changing anything, just I guess outside of trying to explain to people how things work. That's not going great, by the way.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's why I was asking is because this is everything like you are telling us here is incredibly important information, and I mean it's valuable information that is clearly not getting the platform that it needs, and I think you're one of the people who is in a unique position to explain how all of that works. And I again, you said you feel like you could write a strategy that would be a winning strategy as a whole infrastructure thing. I do think that some members of the Democratic Party are starting to kind of wake up to the fact that we need to start looking at things the way
Right,
that you're looking at them.
right.
And it's just it's figuring out a way to make the resources that you have uh available to more people and get them the platform that they need. And I may have some ideas on that we can talk about offline later, but like
Sure.
I was just curious if you're doing anything with anyone specifically because
No. I'll help
this is
candidates when I can. But
mhm,
I can't explain. I'm a very like, and that's what it is. I'm a systems thinker in I've learned with the Democrats a very, 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 very binary world. And that doesn't mean it's not manageable, right? Because you could take all of
mhm,
those different binary choices, right? Put them together and create something better. But it's just like getting people to understand that, right? Like,
yeah,
like the people that said,
um,
"Oh, well, I'm not going to vote because of the thing in Gaza," and I was like, "Okay." I said, America has. If this is the first time they're hearing it, I'm sorry, but again, I've been to some
yeah,
of these events. You're not gonna get. You will not elect a president that does not take money from APEC for a while. And the reality with
mhm,
genocide and the things that are so awful in this world is that there is not going to be a quick fix. You're going to have to work really, really fucking hard the rest of your life, and you won't live to see everything that
Yep.
you wanted, but you still have to be the shoulders the next generation stands on. You need to elect a wide state legislator that doesn't take money from APEC before you ever have a president that didn't. You have to. You have to elect somebody that got money from them to ever elect somebody that didn't get money from them. That step is first. Everybody hates it. I don't love it. And when you tell Democrats the truth, they get like really mad at you. Like when I was describing, for example, what the Houthis and Hezbollah were, or when I said that there's a chance that Trump might win. I'm not saying I like this. I absolutely fucking hate it. I'm saying that we can't live in a world where there's no reality. And if you don't think that this was consequential to Gaza, for example, because I know that that's the big thing that we, I guess, lost on, is that because so people will say we're giving money to Israel, giving money to Israel. Do you know why? It's the 10-year memorandum of understanding. Do you know when that expires? 2026. You cannot tell me that that's not a huge opportunity. One, in terms of midterms, right? But also in terms of who the president and vice president would have been if we're going to continue down another decade of absolutely having to give American money to that much American money to Israel, right? You cannot tell me that having that there'd be any cabinet position like DHS or the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense that wouldn't have made an enormous difference. But people don't think about the fact that they're also electing a cabinet. People don't think about the fact that the other side has a far more strategic and diabolical plan for filling those positions, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's kind of the thing with a lot of the left is just like they need that quick fix and it has to feel good. Like in the same way that people create Gaza content all day long, they couldn't tell me anything about the Middle East. Like how could you be that passionate that you don't vote and wipe everything else away, but you're not like researching upcoming legislation, researching history of the area, researching who's who within these organizations, so that when you see a talking head on Fox News or even CNN, you know that, okay, they're bullshitting you because what they want more than anything right now is to bring you into war with Iran, right? Like, they just aren't systems thinkers. And I really wish that I could make people be, but I don't know. I don't know how to get people thinking about how to solve the problems that they say they care about by working backwards, I guess. They only see the end game.
Yeah, and I think that this has been one of the really frustrating things. I've been bitching about this, and honestly, with with Z Run's campaigns and all of that shit and everything, it's just like a microcosm of this, but on a grand scale, and we saw it all through the election and everything. Is that like if we have a lot of people who as you said, they want the instant gratification. They want the quick fix. They do not want to do the legwork. This is my biggest frustration with third-party voters. It's like, if you haven't put any effort into building a coalition in state legislatures and in Congress and the Senate, where you don't have any support in that, and you just think that Jill Stein's gonna waltz in here and be president and fix the whole world, like, that is a level of arrogance and stupidity that I just cannot. It just drives me up a goddamn wall. And then they have the audacity to be like, oh, you're just a Zionist, genocidal, Nazi, basically. And it's like, no, you are fucking allowing the shit that you say you pretend to care about to happen.
Right.
You are allowing it. You are not putting in the work to fix it.
100%. Because so much like the Israel lobby would be the number one that starts at the lowest ranks. Like, I guess I thought everybody knew that. And I'm talking like county clerk, like they don't give a shit. They just got to get somebody in there. And the other thing too is because people keep saying we need a third party. Guess what, motherfuckers? We have a third party, and they're in office right now. And how the fuck did they do it? How did they do it? They kept moving the Overton window. We chased their fucking tail, and they started to fill every fucking office in this country, from school boards, county fucking clerks. Goddamn. And then what happened? They got their third party, and their third party won. They didn't do it by continuously like running somebody that appeared to be third party. No, everybody was gaslit. They pushed the Overton window. We conceded and we're like, okay, yeah, we'll make some concessions on this and that. And the minute we became almost indistinguishable, the Heritage Foundation was able to drop that Project 2025 atom bomb that they've had in the fucking chamber for 45, 50 years. So Because if you
Well,
want
and
what they
that's
have, you gotta do what they did.
yep, 100%, and that's what I've been saying is the left progressives need that sort of MAGA movement, not necessarily, and obviously not ideologically MAGA, but
Right.
like they gave us the blueprint of how it's like you want this third party, you want this change. Like all you got to do is copy and paste. Just look at your neighbor's
Right.
homework. It's not that fucking hard. Cheat off of
Mm-hmm.
their test, and then just have. You only need a small coalition. It only needs to be enough people to have the leverage to stop stuff from passing. You don't even need to have the votes to get
Mm-hmm.
anything passed. You just need to have the votes to tank anything that is important to them from passing without them giving you something. That's
Yep.
it. And like
But
we
build
need
your
to get
own
our act
co-op.
together for that. Sorry,
No.
Taylor. I know you turned your mic off a little bit there. Did you have something else to add there?
No, I mean it's just it is insane that we're dealing with some people now who've been selected by Trump, who Chrissy Noem wants the ICE agents to arrest 3,000 people per day, and
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy that you can look at one situation and have that decide your vote, well, knowing full well that you have enabled the situation for people who are your neighbors that are having to deal with. Like, obviously, we should have empathy for everyone across the world, especially people that are being, systematically destroyed by us, American sponsored government. Certainly, that's something to care about. But like it's not something that you can have control of, but you can affect people's lives that are your neighbors and your family members and your friends.
And it's all connected. Like there, like that's the other thing that like, and I hate saying that it's all connected because it sounds like a conspiracy theory. Like I don't want to be like fucking Ian
No,
Carroll on
it's
here.
not. Yeah.
Every single policy, that's why they have a conglomerate, right? All the organizations that wrote it is because they have been able to link everybody's rights together in a certain way. That's the way precedent works. They know that that's how Project 2025 was birthed. So it's absolutely possible to have an impact on Gaza through binary action. Okay, it's going to be slow. We got to do it one by one, but it's 100% connected to rights that are here, right? Because why? And by the way, like all of this, like the arresting protesters and calling them Hamas and all of that, that started in South Dakota 2017. Like this isn't my first rodeo. I've been like all like this since like Aleppo, right? And the Republican Jewish Coalition came in and was like, "Oh, Christy, no, make it illegal to boycott anything from Israel." And she's like, "Okay." And they gave her money and she did it. Like everything that the world is seeing now, I have lived through it already once with her. Um, Obviously, way fucking worse now because she's in charge of like everything. But yeah, like okay, so think about it. You want to what happens when we deport all of these people? Okay, those people are voters. In the same way that what happened, like, because people are like, well, I'm not going to vote for abortion because it's not as important as this. Okay, did you know that abortion on a ballot significantly raises the liberal and young voter rate? So do you see how having abortion on a ballot, maybe in say Wisconsin, that's I don't even know if they have an initiative there, and they were off by 40 or 400 votes per county. That could make or break an election. Like everybody's rights are connected, especially when you break down the fact that the all of Project 2025 basically does it's just conquest over conservation, right? That's all it is. Constant expansion, taking over, spreading beliefs. When you make it like an algebraic equation and understand that under, conquest or, over conservation, okay, so what do you have? You have oppression and collective punishment, right? That's going to be like the fascist part of it, right? Splitting us against each other, upholding white national white supremacy. I'll just say that, and then making sure that there's a large horizontal workforce that has little to no upward mobility and moving as much wealth from the bottom to the top. Like if you were to take Project 2025, that's all it is. So link everything you can to that and work backwards, and things like Gaza will, well, I don't know what the future is now. It's devastating, but like those problems have to be solved first. It's just the way it is. Like it's all connected.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, I mean, we can't always have like a revolution every time you want one thing
No,
changed.
no.
It's just very, very difficult to do at any point in time, ever,
Mm-hmm.
but it's it's impossible to do, just like basically on its own. I mean, we've seen attempts to make massive and quick change. Some more successful than others. You know, we've seen Occupy Wall Street, which sort of highlighted the 1%, and now that's an issue that we talk about, and that is definitely more mainstream. But you know, we're
Mm-hmm.
not seeing any massive change from that. Obviously, there was Black Lives Matter, and I think that definitely made a difference in the way that people perceive the police and police state in the United States. But like, we're
Mm-hmm.
not seeing massive, reformations of police departments, and you know, uh, defunding the police isn't happening
No.
anywhere, and the things that actually would have helped people are difficult to move forward. So like, those were huge movements in their time, that had just massive support, and they didn't get things
Mm-hmm.
done. It's not to say that it's not impossible, mind you. Like, we should
Right.
always be striving to find that linchpin that actually does make something happen. But like, relying on that as your main and your sole course of reacting to the political environment, is just not a
No.
strategy that's going to win long term.
No. It's you're just gonna not get the one thing you wanted most, but also not get everything else too. Like
Right.
Yeah.
it's
Uh,
it's sad.
so I think because as we're talking about systems thinkers and how clearly the left is not,
No.
and really the right as a whole is not
They're not
system
either.
thinkers.
No.
Um,
They're
but
just
but
controlled.
this is where I think, and this is why I was talking about, somebody like you, people like you, being more involved, with some sort of structure. This needs to be a top-down structural type thing. Like, you can't do
Mm-hmm.
systems thinking from the bottom up. Systems thinking will always be top-down, and then you need to give people their places within those systems where they can engage and make that difference. And right now we have everybody on the left running around on their own trying to address their one issue that they think is important, more important than every other issue, by themselves. And I think that's really, like, the Democratic Party has none of that top down system thinking structure.
Hang on,
That
let me see if I have
oh,
something real quick.
okay.
Cards with every state on them
Hmm.
and how to like know like what the problem is or what the role would be. I just got to get it up on Substack like eventually. But yeah, because even like no matter even if you're a systems thinker, right? You really
Hmm.
might have a role, whether you want it to be or not, of just making sure that you're organizing and getting certain seats, to not be running, to not be unopposed. And like I think that sometimes that's stressful too for people that are like really smart and good at it. But then other times there's going to be somebody like, hey, look, you are kind of like some of us blue dots, we can't help it. Like we're stuck in a position where it doesn't really matter what I'm good at or no. Like that that it just due to geography is something that I have to be focused on, right? And everybody's problem that they could fix, like that should almost make you feel more powerful, right? Like if you know that they're
Right.
starting in these little towns and stuff, well, then think about how as depressing as it is to be a blue dot, that you actually have like a considerable amount of power because you're actually like at the forefront of this, when those elections come. Find it.
Huh.
But
Yeah.
like, how do you convince people of a role that maybe they don't want? Or how do you know what I mean? Like, is it
Yeah.
enough to
Well,
just have that information out there?
I do think so. I think part of the problem too is that, the Democratic Party is, or just, I'm using the Democratic Party as a term, the entire left,
Right.
and I'm
You know,
using
we
that
both
as the
get called
Democratic.
out like for calling it the wrong thing, so it doesn't matter.
Right, right, right. Like, everything from center right liberals, Democrats, to full blown communists. I'm throwing that all
Right.
underneath the Democratic Party for this
Right. Same.
conversation, because, like, that's the only party that
In
even
the
remotely
semantics of
represents
the left.
anybody under their interest. And part of that is a huge problem, is because you have, Republicans have a very narrow group of morons, if we're being honest, that, you tell them guns, abortion, guns, God, and Trump, basically, abortion, whatever their few little issues are, you can get them all worked up about that. Brown people are coming over the border to take my job at the Quickie Mart and shit, and
Right.
they'll vote specifically on that and not put a ton of thought into it, and not put a ton of thought into the issues that are affecting their lives. But people on the left, again, you have a lot of people who get really, really passionate about a lot of different things. Then you also have a lot of different generations. I mean, when you're looking at the Republican Party, and this is unfortunately starting to shift now, we're seeing with, Gen Z men especially shifting right, which is horrifying. But, like, otherwise, it's Gen Z, or, I mean, it's Gen X and it's boomers make up the majority of the Republican Party. You're looking at a narrow age demographic that kind of views the world through the same lens, has sort of the same similar life experience, and then you look at the left where you've got everybody from Silent Gen all the way down to Gen Z that are all, have make up major sectors of the left. And the way that, like, a boomer volunteers and gets involved is very, very different from the way that a millennial or a Gen Zer is going to get involved. And then you have Gen Zers who obviously got really, really passionate about what's going on in Gaza with the Palestinians, and that's great. You should be, because it is crimes against humanity. It is literal genocide. But they have no fucking idea how we got here. They have no idea how any of the system works, how any of the governmental system works, and they're operating on a lot of emotion and passion with very
And let's
little
be honest,
foundational
they're getting paid
structure
for it too. In terms of creators, so that skews it. It skews it when you have this moral obligation, to watch it, and then it becomes mainstream. But by the way, all of that, the whole idea that, like, you guys know that that's from the other side, right? Like, that was planned.
What? Oh yeah, no, 100%.
The movement within that, right? And they didn't, and I think some of them thought that they were joining a movement like, okay, yeah, I'm like going to give up my rights, but I'm going to give something up for Palestine because I'm new to politics and don't understand, necessarily how things work. But that was 100% a plan. Like that, like when Trump says that he thinks, has a soft spot for TikTok because it helps him win. That was the issue there. That got him. We don't get to see things on here that they don't want us to, right? And so yeah, like it was hard to watch the younger generation come in and want to get involved, but this is why this shit should be taught in schools, right? It starts, that's why they go after education, so that they would know how to better engage it and actually feel like maybe that they were making a difference, because they definitely, well, they made a difference, but not the right one.
They certainly did. Well, and that's the thing I think that is so frustrating, because it's not like it takes, again, some big conspiracy. It just takes a little bit of decent planning on how to push the right dominoes in the right spheres, especially now with social media. And then it runs away like wildfire on its own. They lit that fire with Palestine and then just walked away and watched, us tear each other apart.
Walk in, fuck shit up, and leave. That's exactly what they did.
And so I think that yeah, again, is just it's something that the left is, and the left is always playing catch up, especially the Democratic Party with their messaging. The fire trucks are always 10 miles away by the time the fire gets reported, and they're never doing any prevention. They're never doing any fire prevention on any of this stuff, and it's so frustrating.
Well, and like you said, they told us what they were going to do, so it's also interesting. Oh God, I'm mad at him today. But like,
what do you mean? He stood up for 28 hours. Obviously, he's fighting the good fight, right? He totally did something useful there.
The neighborhood crackhead, and it got me the same thing. Like, oh, so annoying. It's just like, it's not. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, so it's just like not that impressive to watch somebody stand up and not shut up for a long time. But like, what you said too about like they gave us the blueprint and they gave it to us in advance. Which, by the way, I'm convinced Project 2029 is an AI prompt, but it was also written by AI, and I'm convinced that I can prove that. But that also helps it to be easier to deconstruct. But then everybody was like, shock and awe, shock and awe. Like, how are we shocked and awed? They like told us everything they were gonna do. And it was really interesting because the same creators that spent so much time, and talking heads as well. Like, when I say creators, it's just because like I'm breaking from a lot of the news right now. But like We got on here and made content that was like, if he wins, it's Project 2025. It's Project 2025. And then they flipped the script and were like, you guys aren't going to believe this. You guys are like, oh, I believe it. Did we not believe it before? Or like, are you surprised because you didn't believe the content where you were saying this was going to happen? Because I sure as shit did. Like, it's textbook.
It was, and it was all. I mean, and we got called alarmists and we were overreacting and all this shit when it's like, no, they did all this. And he's like, oh, but they're not really gonna do that. And it's like, no, look at he was in office once before and he did the tariffs. The tariffs for me are like the icing on the cake. I want to throat punch. Yeah. Every motherfucker, all these farmers who got, came out there with, please sir, may I have some more for their fucking handouts for their welfare checks because his tariffs tanked their entire markets. All the people around me here got checks written out to them. And it's like, he did this, and it didn't work, and you saw how bad it was, and then he campaigned on doing this again, and you're like, oh, I don't think that he's going to do it this time.
Why wouldn't he? Right.
Why? He said he was going to do it, you didn't believe him, he did it, he fucked everything up, we voted him out because of it, and then you're like, yeah, but he's probably joking this time for real, guys. Like,
right.
How are you allowed to keep breathing? Like, how do you remember to keep breathing when you are that fucking stupid?
Well, because they're the welfare queens, right? Like, they don't got to be talented, I guess, to get their check until now. But so the other thing kind of sweeping the Midwest right now are these major changes to SNAP. And like, and it's the small town, it is the farmers that are like, I don't want you buying fucking brownies with your food stamps. So they did it in Iowa. The amount of things you can no longer buy with SNAP is fucking devastating. I'm very against it. But when you compare the tariffs with USAID, because we feed the world, and these cuts to SNAP, hello Midwest, rural areas, farmers, like, this is going to kill farmers. Because when I was working for Steve King, we went to a meeting and the subject was this. For the longest time, even Steve King, these Republicans were always lying about actually wanting poor people to not be able to get certain things on SNAP. And the reason why is, like, it's a great talking point, you get a punch down on the poor, whatever. But in this meeting, the lobbyists there were like the National Associations of Grocers or something. I don't know their real, but whatever their lobbying body was, and farmers. Right? Because if we know that corn is in, like, basically everything, especially processed foods, do you think Nabisco wants this? Do you think Mars and Nestle want this? No, and I don't really give a fuck about any of them, but it will significantly impact what these farmers are being able to sell. And the grocery stores didn't want to do it because the grocery stores said that, well, if you change it because it's a debit card, they would have to change all of their POS equipment to account for the restriction. So it was always better for everybody for SNAP to be unregulated, right? And then maybe have like a separate program for healthier foods, because I believe people should make, like, forgive me, I think that poor kids should fucking have a birthday cake, like, whatever. But that's who was lobbying against it. So when I saw it pass, I was really surprised. But again, take the logic that we used with voting. The way they applied it to circumvent that in this case was some food is taxed, some food is not, because it was always a matter of the QR, right? It's either food or not. But because we decided to tax some things, like candy and soda, but not apples, that's what they're going on to determine if SNAP can be used for something or not. Which means the next thing they're going to do is decide to tax more things to make it so that people can buy even less items with their SNAP benefits card. And in rural America and in many places, 50% of grocery sales is from SNAP. Like, this is going to fuck farmers horrifically. And if you live in a rural area that is already prone to having a food desert, you have a food desert because it's hard to get fresh produce to you and sold fast enough. Why? Because it's perishable. So if the only thing you have is like your little quick trip Casey's or whatever, and now 95% of that merchandise cannot be sold to 50% of the clientele. Do you know how fucked these rural communities are, and farmers specifically? And they still, like, even in the interviews, it is mind-blowing. They will they'll have tears running down their face. I have to sell my family farm. It's been at my family for 68 years, whatever. And then they'll be, oh, like, well, do you regret your vote? Well, no, I trust he'll rally around and bring the country back in the right direction. It's insanity.
It's a fucking
Like,
cult. It's a fucking cult. It is a fucking cult.
It's a
Just,
cult.
it is not.
He'll deliver
Um,
us. Like, it really is.
yeah,
It's like a religion.
it is. It is beyond insane. It's maybe the biggest cult that is not a mainstream religion to ever exist. Honestly, I mean,
I think that
it's
scholars will
nuts.
call it a new religious movement because that's what it looks like, right? It's
Yeah.
self-sacrifice now for delivery in the end, right? It's an economic,
Mhm.
because capitalism is, right? You're going to sacrifice
Mhm.
now, so then in your afterlife, which would theoretically be retirement, you'll enjoy all the
Mhm.
everything you earn now. Like everything will get better if you stay on this path. You have your, your sacrifice. It's insane to me the way that these
It
guys
is.
like operate. Like I don't understand,
It is
but
insane.
I
And the
think that
blind
they're
faith too,
uncomfortable.
because so many times with the tariffs, when like I've seen this in real time with real people in real life, where you're like, yeah, these tariffs don't work, and everybody says they don't work, and like we have historical evidence that they don't work, and like none of the data supports that they're going to work, and we saw that they didn't work the last time we did them, last time he was in office, and
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, well, what's going on now isn't working, so like why not just try something else? Like he's a smart businessman, he's gonna figure it out. It's just like the blind faith and just suspense from reality completely, and just the blind faith in it, even though we're watching in real time. And now we're it's like, oh, the economy is now
Mhm.
tanking. Yeah, well, it's gonna come back. You just gotta have
It-
faith. It's gonna happen. And it's like he's not fucking Jesus, dude, or
No.
apparently to you he is.
Well, to them, I think that he is. Like I honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because they're so committed in it. And then there's like the moderate kind of Republicans that are like, well, I have a small business that have never been clear about who they voted for. But what they're doing is they're blaming the tariffs because what they're not telling you, and I'm just going to say it, like the busy baby mom that's always like, because of tariffs, rubber this, and well, there's a lot of Republicans that really don't like the things that Trump's doing. Well, you fucking voted for him, so I really don't give a fuck. But you know me, I do deep dives. So I'm like, okay, is it really tariffs? Because it's a little early, right, for the tariffs to be impacting her business. And I've done this with a few on the right that are really toting a moderate line. What they're not telling you is the other thing that happened and all of the loans for people like veterans that got canceled. Because I went and looked up Busy Baby. I think she's in your state, isn't she, Minnesota? Um, she had
I don't
gotten
know, I guess.
like
Who?
I don't want to tell you. So it's one of the big creators now that's saying, like I was like a
Busy
kind
mom,
of
I think, right?
conservative. I voted for Trump. I accounted for, and she always says, I accounted for tariffs to be what he said they'd be. I didn't account for tariffs to be this high, is what she says. And she says, but there's a lot of us Republicans that don't like what he's doing. So I went and looked up the grant, like every element of her business was funded by the United States government with veterans loans. And so it's like, and so I wanted to, it's like, be so fucking for real. Yeah, these tariffs are gonna motherfuck you, but let's talk about all of the other things that he said before he got into office he was gonna do that he did that's also crushing your business.
Yeah.
But they won't because they only tell you the victim part when they can't sell their product or it suddenly becomes expensive because they've worked their whole life for something, right? They don't,
Yo.
they never, just like the farmers, never tell you that all of it was funded by the government to begin with. So they're burning at both ends. They're no
Mm-hmm.
longer sucking off the teat, and now they have nowhere to put their product.
Yep. Yep. No,
Mm-hmm.
it is absolutely insane, and the fact that like I mean, some of them are starting to come around, and I think like lose their faith, lose their religion a little bit. And I
Mm-hmm.
get it that it's really hard to have that deconstruction and admit that you were that wrong for that long, and
Oh,
so they're
hardest
trying to hang
Facebook
on.
post I ever made for sure. Absolutely, I get
Yeah,
it.
so I have faith that as this goes on, we're going to see more and more of them just try to ease that impact as they ease out of, the program.
Mm-hmm.
But it is just, it is hard to watch from the outside. And again, it's like, we fucking told you so. And then you saw it for yourself, and then we told you so again, and you did it again. It's like the kid
Right,
that touches the hot stove, and it's like, okay, well, maybe it won't hurt with this hand. And
right.
they
And some
go
of
all
them did
over it.
it three
And
times.
yeah, I know. So
So,
I think we've been going on for an hour and a half now because this is all really interesting stuff, and I think we need to wrap it up because once again we've kept it not under an hour like we always plan on doing. We've kind of given up on making
Yeah.
that happen. I
This is why
guess
I'm not
some
impressed with
closing.
Cory Booker. I could talk all day.
Exactly. Yeah. We could definitely make a podcast episode go for 28 hours straight and probably be
Right.
more effective than anything Cory Booker did. And
No
then we
shit.
wouldn't get off and vote for a Trump nominee. So,
Yeah.
uh
Oh, fuck.
some close some closing statements. What do you think, I guess, elevator pitch on how we keep this ship from sinking?
The fo- Every state needs to be prioritized probably within 5 categories, right? And within those categories, we determine where we're going to spend. Are we saving a spot? Are we this? But then ultimately understand that it's a hierarchy. Yes, you have to start at the top, but that doesn't mean you only work at the top. Like, I think they think that they're going to win at the top and then eventually they'll get to work themselves down. No, we need to drill down all the way to the bottom. If you are in a blue dot like me in a rural area, that means that your role in this, in whatever capacity you can, is to make sure that people don't run unopposed. If you're in a state like Wisconsin, you absolutely need to look very specifically at the anti-democratic policies in your state that led to this. Specifically, what they did is they targeted, for example, in Wisconsin, neighborhoods with under $45,000 a year average income, 15% Black, life expectancy of under 70 that was on the border. Okay, so if you're Wisconsin, all right, you know that that's your anti-democratic policy. You do everything to fight tooth and nail to make sure they don't throw another one in, but to reverse that. And if you know that they're targeting those neighborhoods in your state, okay, that means that that's where your resources need to be. No more rallying around the flag in the bluest, wealthiest district that is safe and has resources, right? It's going to be a state by state thing where you identify the problem and work from the top up and the bottom down. Like, it's going to be a cycle. And you have to understand that, it took them 40 to 50 years to do this. We're trying to pass the policies that they set the stage for. We need to set the stage while we're writing and working on these policies. And it's going to look different for everybody. I don't know what the fuck Hakeem Jeffries is doing, side note. Because I've seen
job, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, of course, I try to email. Like, one thing about me is I will make any phone call. Like, I've called the DOJ, I've called the FBI. Like, as I started doing this research and I knew things, I can't even. Did you know there's like no way to contact him? Like, and I don't even mean him personally. I mean like
His office.
the DNC. Yeah, it's impossible. I have to be a constituent. So.
Yep.
Snail
That's
mail
the
it
case
in.
for like every Republican ever too. Like.
Yep.
Yep. But yeah, no, I think that is excellent advice, and I don't know, maybe you need to start a consulting firm for the Democrats. You don't have to join any of their organizations; just get them to pay you and tell them what the fuck to do.
Well, I started posting my Project 2029 stuff on Substack with like the most like my Substack I've only have 3 up and it's going to be absolute chaos. And I said that because people are like, why aren't you getting it out faster? I'm like, well, nobody sees my TikToks. I think I had 30 or 40 of them muted this month, so I'm toast. I'm like, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put study guides up, and all it's going to be is key terms that you need to know, right? And then I will go state by state and give advice at where I see the biggest problem, right? And I'm just going to do that for free because I don't have time. I already did all the work, right? And why a consulting firm when like people want to listen or they don't. So they might as well, if somebody picks up on it, maybe another creator can make some content with it. I don't really care, but yeah, people need to understand. And that's why I fucking hate, that's why like fucking election day should be a national holiday. And the voting rules should be the same everywhere.
All right. Well, unfortunately, it seems like Trump Mobile or North Dakota, South Dakota infrastructure has cut us off a little early here as she was giving us the final secrets to the puzzle. But please go follow Miranda. It's Miranda Poli Sci. That's POLISCI. So like political science. Miranda Poli Sci. That's on Substack. That is on Instagram.
And TikTok.
Blue Sky, TikTok. Yeah, go give her a follow. Make sure that you are paying attention to what she's saying because this is some really important information coming from somebody who has been on both sides of the aisle and understands the inner workings of kind of both structures. This is incredibly important stuff and the keys to actually making real change. Please go follow her, support her stuff, share it, share it, share it. Thank you again so much to all of you for listening to us do this every week, giving us a little bit of your time. It's why we do what we do, and we really do enjoy doing this. Again, if you want to support the channel more than just listening, which is all we ask that you do, but if you want to go beyond that, we appreciate that because this costs us money, so you can support us via subscription on YouTube. We have a Patreon still hanging around out there that we don't do much with, but it is there. Otherwise,
we do plan on posting some more member content only on our Patreon and to the YouTube members as well. So it is just slow for us to arrange that.
Yeah, we're doing this all on our own. Well, we've got a million other things going on, so you know, someday we'll be able to hire staff and it'll run like a well-oiled machine. But until that day comes,
that's the dream.
That is the dream. Otherwise, merch, you can get merch at offjawagon.com. You can get Off Jawagon merch as well as Let Them Eat Toast merch, which Taylor had his hand in designing, and it actually looks pretty sweet. So go get you some of that. Is Miranda on YouTube? I did not see her YouTube on her link tree, but she should be.
Let's see. I'm looking at it on YouTube. She does not appear to be on YouTube.
Okay, not on YouTube yet. We're gonna tell her to get on YouTube though. All right. So anyway, follow her all the other places, and then hopefully you'll see when she does get on YouTube. And again, thank you all for watching, and apologize for the abrupt end here. You know, technology and us don't tend to do all that well together.
It was a fun conversation, and hope you guys liked it. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.